Well, good afternoon, everybody. At this time, we would like to open up the workshop part of our budget process this afternoon. And where's Alejandro? There you are. All right. Are you ready, sir? Are you ready? You're ready? Okay, you're ready. All right. Well, at this time, I'd like to call up David Trantham, our district clerk, and he is going to go over his budget justification. Welcome back.
I'm just here to obviously appeal the request for new staffing that we made for the budget year this year. I asked for 5 additional employees. When I originally sent my appeal, we based it on 2. However, earlier last week, after I sent that to Alejandro, the Supreme Court came out with their, what I guess would be labeled an unfunded mandate in popular terms. Yep. That does impact our office significantly beyond what we originally forecast. I am asking for 5 additional staff members for office to make the adjustments. You know, after I submitted my appeal, or not my appeal, pardon me, after we submitted our original budget, just by chance, I caught a prosecutor in the parking lot, and they said, "Oh yeah, we're working on a new grand jury." Unbeknownst to me, I had no knowledge of that happening until after I submitted my original budget recommendation. And then once I made my appeal request to Alejandro is when the Supreme Court came down with some more orders that directly impact our office from a not only just a court's perspective, but the parties involved in those cases as well, and along with, you know, some other community safety aspects. So I'll be happy to discuss any questions y'all might have. I have a couple folders. I'm not sure if Alejandro provided you some supplemental documentation I created with data.
Yeah, that'd be great.
In support of that. So
Perfect.
if y'all would like to.
And members, I would say that David's request, it was a timing issue because I will say that if this would need to be contingent upon if we hire the other staff, which is recommended for the district attorney's office at the proposed budget. Okay, so this is kind of a if-then. If we approve those and establish the second grand jury, this would accompany that. So I would
So yes, so currently we run under 1 grand jury. There's expectations with the approval of the district attorney's request that we'll have a second grand jury. Right now we do probably anywhere from 75 to 120 indictments a week. With the second grand jury, you know, you expect those numbers to basically double. I don't expect they're filing more cases. I just think they're filing more cases quickly. So that does impact our office down the line because, you know, we have state reporting requirements to go with that, public information requests that go with that when people want to know who's been indicted and what court they've been assigned to, stuff like that. So we have a lot of information we have dispersed to the state. Currently I have 2 clerks that handle filing those indictments in my office for the entire county as a whole. So I asked for 2 clerk 3s to hopefully bring that number up to double those indictments that will be coming in. The other 3 positions I did request were basically a reorganization that would put people that are working in our office under one function, it reorganize them to that function only, and then those slots that they would vacate would to be dispersed to the courts to have more staff in the courtrooms to address. I understand they're going to have a criminal docket with the 367th, so that'll make 1 more court that has a criminal docket. Right now, I cannot supply a clerk to that docket as we stand because I only have 4 clerks that service our district courts in that aspect. And then, as I mentioned, the Supreme Court came out Tuesday of last week in relation to HB 3474. Don't know their standings, don't know the reasonings why. It could be an argument between Austin and judges and legislatures and whatever else, but part of that requirement of HB 3474 is I have to send notice of every single order in a criminal case, a civil case, a family case, a CPS case, to every party involved in that case, and I have to pretty much do it immediately. Now, we do about 70,000 orders a year. There's no way my staff of 47 dedicated employees that e-file and work filings every single day can take on that load of also sending those orders and those required notices to those parties as required. I don't know what the penalty is for not being compliant with that. All I can tell you is at this point right now, we're not going to be able to be compliant with that rule put forth by the Supreme Court. It's physically impossible. I think we did some testing on it. It cost, not cost, but it would have an impact of about 1 clerk spending 89 hours a week to send all those orders as required by that new Supreme Court rule. Like I said, it's for every case. It's for if a case has 2 parties or a case that might have 50 parties involved in it. I got to send notice of those orders and all this stuff pretty much immediately. So it does hamper it. I'm not in compliance with it. I'm not going to be in compliance with it unless we can start addressing those issues and shoring it up right now. I'm not here to play past name games and what happened in the past. You know, we did a lot of studies in 2014, 2015. You know, we said in 2015 we're going to have 12 district courts in 2037. Well, here we are, 12 district courts now coming on 2025. So we're 12 years ahead of schedule of where we projected ourselves to be, you know, and I don't want to blame it on the last district clerk, but, you know, Cindy Mitchell did do some forethought in her office. She kept growing with the county and growing with the county, growing with the county.
Yeah.
You know, and our previous district clerk just, you know, I don't know her reasonings were, her I don't want to speak for her on her behalf, not knowing what those previous actions were, but we are now addressing matters that we have not addressed in the past and that are coming to light right now. And so with that, I do ask that I do get the allocated appeals of the employees I'm asking, just so that our office can be in compliance with the rules of the Supreme Court of Texas, Court of Criminal Appeals, and what our legislators have passed. So, as I mentioned, I've given you a handbook there with a lot of new data that we've had in the last couple of weeks that address those new rules and everything that goes on with it. So, with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. The district courts did provide me with a letter of their support as well. Some of them are here. Also, I appreciate their appearance on their behalf on that one because, you know, it's a team effort. I look at Denton County as one big team. It takes all of us to make it work. You know, I like to think that we're number 7 on the population charts, but I want to be number 1 in the hearts and minds of those across the state. So, like I said, with that, I hope.
Well, you did a great job, David, of outlining that. And members, do you have any questions, Commissioner Mitchell?
How many employees, new employees are you asking?
I'm asking for 5 additional right now. It's a kind of a reorganization of our office. 2 of those district or deputy clerk 3s would be assigned to do the new indictments that would come from the grand jury. The other 3 are reorganization. We have a really great training process right now in our office for new hires that come on board. We do a really intensive training program to get them informed, up to date, give them that knowledge base to be able to work within our office, work within our courts. And so we want to reorganize those positions to be those slots, and then when those positions get vacated would be recycled back to the court. So right now those positions they occupy are senior clerks and clerk 3s. We would reposition those clerks with those openings from the reallocation to the courts to fulfill the 367th Criminal District Court for their criminal docket, and then also keep up with the necessary workload to comply with the new Supreme Court rules.
David, I see your cover letter here with the 11 district judges in support. Remember, we do have 3 district judges with us today, and thank you, judges, for taking time out of your docket to be here and advocate for his request. Members, do you have any questions for David or the district judges? Commissioner Falconer.
Quick. David, thank you for all that information, and certainly very supportive of your request in general, and especially with the ones with all of the unfunded mandates that we're getting. And you touched on it. Can you elaborate just a little bit, though, on the additional grand jury? Because in essence, we're not having any more cases. Well, we may be growing some cases, but the grand jury doesn't affect that. It just means that we're going to, for at least a time, we'll have an accelerated number of indictments coming through, right?
Right. So right now they will typically hold what's called, I can't remember if it's every quarter they do it. I'm assuming it's every quarter, at least once a grand jury. But they have what's called a super grand jury, where they will take everything that, I guess it might be time sensitive to the prosecution of cases. Matt Shelvin might know more, Judge Breeding might know more, and Sherry, along with Steve. I don't know the super grand jury rules. I just know sometimes they'll hit us with 200, 250 indictments on that week. Well, that week, it will take me 2 to 3 weeks just to get those even filed, where notices can be sent, for hearings to be set, stuff like that. So if that's going to be an every week occurrence of 200 to 300 cases coming to my office, you know, it's a constant underwater issue. I'm never caught up with what I have with the 2 clerks that do that right now. Like I said, it takes, if we have a super grand jury week, it probably takes us no less than 2 weeks just to get those cases built, filed, notices sent to everybody that needs to have notices sent to them regarding conditions of bond or other public safety matters, getting that information reported to the state, and then let alone issuing any warrants that might come with those indictments from the grand jury and stuff like that. So if we double that up every week, I'm underwater. And then they also added the 367th will be getting a criminal docket as well. So while the docket load, as cases being filed are not necessarily, maybe not increased, but maybe a couple hundred cases, you've now spread that docket across 6 courts instead of 5. Therefore, things can happen faster because you have more people handling that information to process it, I guess to say. So it speeds it up, I guess, in that aspect as well.
Okay, so, I am not in the least an expert on any of this, right, so on the courts, but I'm guessing that those super grand juries are maybe catch-ups or something. Well, wouldn't the second grand jury be there to help prevent that kind of thing? So,
That would be my guess, but I don't know exactly how I don't know how they pick cases to go to grand jury. Like I said, I don't know, grand juries, super grand juries are just those cases that are having statute of limitation minimums that are, you know, hey, this got a 3-year statute, we've not been able to get this filed, so we're gonna dump it in to the super grand jury and get it done and out of the way, you know? But like I said, if that's if every week's a super grand jury, it's,
Well,
it's
and I
underwater.
think if nothing else, I think what you have mentioned is that, if we could be honest, you've been operating understaffed potentially, and so this is going to get you to a point where you can
100%.
breathe a little bit.
I mean, it keeps us certainly from drowning and sinking to
Right.
the bottom.
Right.
You know, I
Right.
mean, there's always going to be constant future addresses that have to be made. And again, I'm limited by, I can't make the the walls of the courthouse any larger and
Yeah, we're working on that.
Yes, sir.
We're working on
I-
that part.
yes, sir,
I
but-
do know more about that.
but as I know, things take time and I can't take my own sledgehammer out there and knock out more space. So I'm limited by, you know, I only have so many nooks and crannies and stuff to
Right.
fill people into.
Gotcha.
But it will be a constantly addressing problem, because like I said, I give you data from other counties that are comparative to our size and where they stand, and just organizationally and functionally, we've been really behind on where everybody else of our same county size is for this particular office. So,
And we appreciate your
well, I mean,
in that regard.
I can't tell you or ask you or anything without you knowing and being informed, you know, and you know, that's why I try to talk with most everybody I can when I see them and keep everybody updated when they visit the courthouse and stuff like that, so.
David, I have a question. That new court comes online January 1st of next year, is that correct?
Of 25.
25.
25. Okay, so we've got all next year to kind of get caught up, I hope, before that court comes online.
Kind of, but once again, I can't stop when the DA's gonna say they're not gonna do the grand jury. I can't stop when the 367th gets their criminal docket. I can't stop the Supreme Court from saying, you have to do this. So, yes, that court coming online in a year does give us some wiggle room to make adjustments when it comes online, but it's still addressing future concerns we're gonna have with this office for what we need to address now.
Yes, I understand. And again, this is an unfunded mandate by the legislature, is that correct? The Supreme Court has said you have to do these things.
Correct. It was kind of a vague statute when it was written, so nobody really knew where it was gonna go. So in that statute, they put it in the Office of Court Administration's hand and said, hey, or by rule of them. So last week, they came out with their new rule, and their new rule was basically the clerks, because the judges' offices, they're, you know, minimal staff, they're a court reporter and a court administrator. They can't do 70,000 orders any more than I can do 70,000 orders, but they put on the clerks because typically our clerks' offices are direct support for the courts for those functions of filing and moving that paperwork, so that's why they gave it to us, you know. And you look at some of the bigger counties, Harris County, they got 400 people in their district clerk's office. Tarrant County has 200, you know, and they're there to, you know, maybe they look at those bigger counties and they assume we're in the same position, you know, oh, hey, top 10, they can handle it, but past transgressions of this office and past lack of forethought or foresight, whatever you want to call it, has put us in the position we're in now, and it's to the point where it's hampering us, and we're not going to be in compliant as we currently stand.
So what is your total staff compared like to the 400 and 200 that you were talking about?
So right now I have total of 49 employees, 50 including myself. Collin County has 81 total staff. Williamson County, I have it here in the pamphlet.
in the book.
Yeah.
David, did you get some,
But it's a functionality of space, I mean.
Right, and
so,
that's-
I mean, we're working on that.
You know, I'd love to ask for 30 employees right
Where are we
now,
gonna put 'em?
but I don't have to worry to put 30 employees, nor does the county have money to fund automatically 30 employees right now.
but didn't you get some employees last year?
I did,
New
yes, ma'am.
employees? How many did we give you?
I got 6.
Okay.
I did get 6, yes, ma'am.
Okay, any other questions? All right.
As always, I'm appreciative of everything y'all provide to us. Every time I've come to y'all for anything, you've been graciously welcoming of my ideas and opinions and expectations, and I do appreciate that. I just want to also say thank you. We're doing our remodel right now, too. I know
Yes,
it's not
thank
to do
you.
the budget necessarily, but our staff is really, really happy with the way things are turning out.
We're
with that,
working on
so
that. That's
we do
great.
appreciate
Good,
it.
thank you.
So
Thank you.
Thank you, and to our guests that are with us today, we will, you're welcome to stay, obviously. Do not anticipate us taking official actions on these till towards the end of the meeting after we hear all the appeals and hear everything in its entirety. So, if you want to stay here and be a spectator, you're more than welcome to, but I don't want you to stick around, because we're going to be doing that in the next couple of minutes. We will be doing that at the conclusion of the appeal process today. All right. This is not an appeal, but I was going to call him at the beginning of this workshop. Our very own Sheriff Tracy Murphy's here, would like to extend some comments to the Commissioner's Court. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Judge, Commissioners, thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. I wanted to speak about the proposed pay increase for Denton County law enforcement. And although I've talked to each of you individually and thanked you, I wanted to thank you as a group in front of the world for your support of law enforcement in general, and more specifically my office. This is significant pay raise. It's been a long time overdue, and in our one-on-one meetings, each and every one of you were asked great questions, were very supportive of us. You understand the staffing issues law enforcement is facing nationwide, and we're not immune to that here, as you know. I will tell you that things are starting to get better, and I feel like with this pay raise that we're going to make some significant progress in staffing our jail specifically and the entire office. I just want to thank you for being willing to listen, to understand there's a problem, and being understanding and working through different issues with me and with my office. And I tell people all the time, we don't always, sometimes we disagree, but we're never disagreeable. And that's important that we built those relationships. I wanted to, while I'm here, thank the men and women of the Denton County Sheriff's Office, especially those who have been with us for a long time. In the last 3 years, we've gone through what I would say are 3 of the toughest years in law enforcement history, with the anti-police sentiment, with the protest, with COVID, and now with the nationwide staffing issues. And these men and women who have been with us have stuck through it. They've worked their tails off, and they've endured a lot of hardships, and they're still here. On their behalf, I want to thank you for recognizing that and recognizing that something had to be done. And as Commissioner Mitchell and I discussed the other day, there's still work to be done, and there is. And I'm very convinced that we'll be able to work through anything. And there's a couple of things that some folks who don't get thanked, I have thanked them personally, but I wanted to thank them in front of you. And that's Gustavo and his staff and Alejandro and his staff. Every time we needed comparisons, every time we needed numbers, every time we needed some information, every time we needed budget impacts, they jumped on it immediately. And these two guys, especially in this time of the year, they take it from every elected official in the county. And they often get torn between this court and other elected officials and things they have to do, and they don't get enough credit, and their staffs are amazing. And as I told Alejandro, I'm not always the easiest guy to deal with at certain times, but I'm advocating for my people and advocating for my office.
As you should.
And Commissioner Edmondson, amen that. I'd like to have that on the record. And, but always professional, always cordial, and always willing to help. And I just want to, you as their supervisors should know what a great job that they do. And once again, for the entire Denton County Sheriff's Office, we thank you guys. It is going to be significant. It's going to be significant, and we are going to work to make it a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Thank you,
you.
sir.
Thank you for the great job you do. I think it's always tough to be a sheriff. I can only imagine, and then it's, especially during national trends and shortages, it's a difficult time to be in office. Okay, at this time, let's go to item 2. Pardon me. Item 2, and this is an appeal from all the Justice of the Peace offices, and I believe Judge DiPiazza is here to address this request. And I will mention before the good judge speaks is that there was, we had an issue earlier back a couple months ago about clerks in the Justice of the Peace office, and so I wanted the court to be sure to hear you directly about this, and so I did not put in a recommendation on this specifically because I wanted you to be able to make a case because there was a split vote on that a couple months ago when you were doing a promotional guideline. So I wanted the full court to be able to hear this out of respect to everybody. So go right ahead, sir.
All right, thank you, Judge, Commissioners. On behalf of all the Justice of the Peace, I'm making this request to you to reclassify our Deputy Clerk 1s to Deputy Clerk 2 positions. This reclassification really goes back a number of years, back from 2008 when the county hired Evergreen Solutions to redo the job descriptions for Denton County. And when that came out, the Justice of the Peace did not agree with their assessment on reclassifying or moving our justice clerks into the deputy clerk positions. And I know Judge Larson at the time, 3 consecutive years, she tried to make the argument. It kind of fell by the wayside after that, but given some of the things that happened that's outlined in the request was what brought the 6 of us to want to bring this up again. I don't want to rehash what I provided in the justification, but just provide a little bit more foundation and baseline for this. And so I'm not really coming to you as one of the Justices of the Peace. For 15 years prior to my taking office, I served as an organizational and human resource development professional. I have my master's from UNT in interdisciplinary studies in that field of organizational and human resource development. And so that's kind of where it went with the conversation with Evergreen Solutions. And so I could speak their language, and when I asked the questions, they provided the answer. They brought up another question, and we went back and forth for about 15 or 20 minutes, and it finally got to the point to where one of the consultants that was there had to say, Judge, I'm not going to say that I don't disagree with you, but our hands are tied. We were given this directive to reduce the number of job descriptions, and this is one of the decisions that we had to make to do that. For me, from my perspective, that's not the reason that you make the decisions. You make the decisions because it's the right decision, not because your client gave you a directive that this is what the end result had to be. And so what I want to provide you is a couple other underlying things. Is one, we are a trial court. The Justice Court is a trial court. If you look at the organizations of every other trial court in Denton County, not a single one of them has a deputy clerk assigned to them. The only trial court in Denton County that has deputy clerks is the Justice Court. And originally they were Justice Court clerks and Justice Court senior clerks, and they were reclassified to a Deputy Clerk 1 and a Deputy Clerk 3. We were in disagreement on the Deputy Clerk 1. We said that if you want to make us deputy clerks, then at a minimum, our Justice Court clerks should be Deputy Clerk 2s, but that did not prevail at the time. And so what we're looking at now is just trying to bring equity back to our clerks and to reestablish the Justice Court clerk and the Justice Court senior clerk position. During that process, they didn't change our chief clerk. They kept the the Justice Court chief clerk intact. And that was my argument with them, is if you saw that the chief clerk's duties are different than the court administrators for the other court, then how can you turn around and say that our clerks do the same jobs that are done in the county clerk's office, the district clerk office, and the tax office? Just one, there's several differences. I'm just going to bring up one. Our clerks are deputized by us, the judicial officers of the court. They're acting on our behalf when they're working in our courts. The one thing that our clerks do that no other clerk in the county can do is take a plea from a defendant, take their money, and they get adjudicated as guilt. If there's ended up a guilty verdict on them. That in and of itself should show that our justice court clerks have a different role than the deputy clerks that are currently in the other offices. And so we are really asking for the reinstatement of the justice court clerk and bringing it up from the, I had it written down here, the
Grade 4 to grade 5?
to a GO 512 job classification, and that's
Okay.
the deputy clerk too. So we'd like to reestablish the justice court clerk, bring it up to that level. We'd like to reestablish the justice court senior clerk, but we're not asking for any pay difference for them. What they're being paid now isn't equitable pay for the duties that they're doing. We just want to reestablish the positions in the justice court to have those two positions. And I know with doing that, that's going to create the workload of having to create new job descriptions for those. But since that is my professional background before I took office, I'm more than willing to do that work, so it's not a burden that gets thrown out to human resources to have to create those two.
So hang on, Judge, I thought we were, and I'm going to get to you in just a second, Bobby, but
Okay.
I thought,
We'll just
I thought
raise
this, your
class-
request was just for the, on my agenda here, it's just for
The
the.
one
for the-
to the
for
two.
For the ones to the twos. So
Right.
what was, so you
Right.
expound on your other comment there?
So
Retitle
in
as
the,
Retitle.
in the last part of the request that I put, I
Yes.
had put in there that ultimately we want to see the justice court clerk's positions reestablished. So I'm not sure how it got put on the calendar.
Okay,
for
so that
just
could be, that could be, so it's a title change only?
It would-
Or it's a title change and job description only?
Correct.
Okay, that's something we could maybe do as part of a non-budgetary process.
And that was the
If-
direction
if the
that
court
we were kind of
decides.
looking at, is maybe doing that as a secondary. But I wanted to be able to make the case that our justice court clerks have a different role than the other deputy clerks in the county clerk's office, the tax office, and the district clerk's office.
Okay, Commissioner Mitchell.
Okay, you're wanting, when you talked to me, you talked about moving the clerk ones to clerk twos.
Correct.
What happened to the clerk one's position? Are you talking about doing away with those?
Correct.
So anybody that get hired would automatically get hired into the clerk two?
Correct. And
That's
that's
a
why
new
we're saying that would be
floor.
the justice court clerk position that we had prior to the change that was done in 2008.
Okay, so we would no longer have a just clerk one?
Deputy,
Period.
we wouldn't have a deputy clerk one position in the justice court.
Okay. Okay. And what did you say about the senior clerk?
Right now, they're deputy clerk threes, and we would like to reestablish the justice court clerk and the justice court senior clerk to be what would be the deputy clerk twos and the deputy clerk threes, so that the nomenclature of our positions reflect the job that they do as
A retitle,
correct.
a retitle,
The threes are the senior clerks right now.
Correct.
a
Yes, ma'am.
retitle.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what is the budgetary impact of doing that?
It's about a $2,000 difference in salary rate, starting salary
Per clerk?
per clerk.
And there's how many clerks total? Justices?
I think it's in here. I think it's 40. I think it's 40,000 some odd dollars. It's just over 40,000 to do the
Oh, I see down
reclass.
here, yes. Thank you.
And if I may, Judge, do you mind if I just ask a question? Judge, thank you, and thank you for taking the time to talk to me too. And quite frankly, on nomenclature, I'm open. However, the titles don't make as much difference to me. However, I still think that there might still be, and I appreciate, and you all know your stuff, but I do think there's still some value in having, like we've actually got in several of the courts, not all of them, where you have
Progression.
yeah, you have that progression. You have all three positions, well, technically four, but I mean, you have a 1, a 2, and a 3, so that when you're bringing someone in at the beginning, you might have them at a 1, but that gives them that opportunity to progress to a 2 without waiting for someone to leave that number 3 position, which I guess might be a different title now, but just for.
Would you be open to keeping those positions, keeping the classifications, and that they get that over years of experience or certifications, and that they roll into that instead of having to have a vacancy in a position, but after a tenure of service, after X amount of tenure or certification or training, they could start out as a 1 and have an opportunity to progress?
So,
To be aspirational?
So would this be something where we would have to, every year, come back and make a
No, I think it would
request
be
for it,
something
or
that-
just something where it's progression?
It's a
When they
progression.
have 6 months or a year of experience, then we can move them up into the,
Yes. We've talked about that with, we talked about it with other positions across the county where it's, you could hire in at something, and based on tenure or certification, you motivate them to have a criteria, and they advance through that at their pace.
my colleagues would, are there any?
You're negotiating on live camera here, so I don't, I'm just saying the concept would kind of, is something that we could potentially work towards.
I don't want to answer on behalf of
I
my
hear.
colleagues.
Good afternoon. See you guys.
Hello, Judge.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
Good.
My understanding, we don't have, I come from a state system that is what you're talking about, and I think
Yeah.
that's perfect. But we don't have that,
Okay.
my understanding is.
Right. You're correct.
And so if we could establish that, that would be awesome.
Okay.
Because what I'm doing.
We can do that, right?
I'm losing clerks to another office that starts out at a 2,
Sure.
and I've lost 4 clerks that direction. And
Yeah.
so and right now, the way it stands,
Correct.
we don't have a system like you're talking about.
Okay.
Somebody's either got to die, promote, or go away. So if you did have a promotional system that had a testing or whatever you put in place, I think that would be great.
Okay.
But,
Well, I think that is, there may be a willingness among the court to do that. I think what we could do is, this is a budget process, so we could handle this as a part of a budget process as far as allocating funds, as there's availability, progress into that. And then, let's get this budget process behind us, and then we work towards that effort. So there's an opportunity for progression and excellence and career advancement. So that might be something. Is there a sense of, okay. Is there a, we don't have to get a firm commitment, but there's an openness to that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good, thank you. We might have solved a problem here. All right, good, thank you.
Judge, I'd like to thank you too for explaining the difference in what your clerk does versus, let's say, somebody in the tax office clerk. Because I didn't realize that, and it makes a huge difference. So thank you for clarifying.
well, and I just want to give you a circumstance that happened to me this last week.
Speaking to the judge, if you could speaking to the microphone there, but there
Thought
we
I
go.
talked loud enough. I'm
It's
sorry.
okay. No, it's okay. There's actually people watching from afar, so we want to be sure they
I
hear.
have the senior clerk that gave me an hour's notice of departure and her reason for leaving was the stress of the job.
Yeah,
And she went to another job that has less stress, because as a senior clerk, she's responsible for when my chief clerk leaves to do her job also. And if one of these clerks make an honest mistake, and we do, when we try to correct them when we do, it could affect the outcome of my court case.
right.
And so that's what's important for our clerks, to have the training and the knowledge and everything. But when I lost the senior clerk, it really hurt my office tremendously. So, yes, I agree with the promotional, but I also think our clerks do more than the normal clerk. They answer the phones, they deal with the public that comes in. When somebody's issued an invitation to our offices, issued by the DPS, or I'm talking about citations, I call them invitations, they have to deal with that. There's nobody that comes in our office that's happy.
Yeah.
Nobody. Maybe somebody getting married, and I question that.
Maybe, depends. I'm sorry. We'll leave it there.
I think we need to stop
We'll
in
leave it
every
there.
now and then with a smile.
But, when an officer issues an invitation to come visit with the judge, they're not happy.
Right,
And so it takes a special clerk to answer the phone. I've listened to some of the conversations these clerks have.
yeah.
And it would make an old military man blush, some
Yeah.
of them, so.
And I'm just gonna say this. You said they do more. I'm pretty sure some of these other offices would beg to differ.
Well,
They do
sure.
a different kind of work, but I think all the offices work
Yes,
and do a
ma'am.
lot, but they do a different kind of work.
Maybe I misspoke,
Yeah.
but
I was gonna correct that because we'll get emails on that.
that's the old law enforcement in me, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But
We understand your sentiment.
nobody likes going to the
See,
tax office.
that's right.
Yeah, especially when the air conditioning's off in your office. They really don't like that, so. But I want to thank y'all for listening to us. Our clerks do a phenomenal job. It's amazing to me what they can and can't get done.
Right.
And another thing, and a little caveat that just came to my mind, when we have court, whatever, if we're having a criminal court, civil court, or administrative court, that clerk that's responsible for that section has to come with the judge. That takes her away from her duties. And so they don't stop, especially with the invite of e-filing. You know, e-filing is, I've noticed people file e-files 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. We'll have 30, 35, for each clerk in the morning. So when she's with me, that takes her away from those duties. So that's another problem we have.
Perfect. Okay. Here, any other questions, members? All right. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Huey. And then next is Judge Curbo for item 3. Good afternoon, sir.
Based on that last one, this one.
Hi, good afternoon.
Did you get your son off to college?
Yes, sir, I did.
Good.
It was a busy Sunday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. driving down to San Marcos to get him set up. Getting my wife out was the hardest part.
Yes, yes,
Hard
yes.
part.
Yeah,
But Judge Each, Commissioners, thank you so much for giving me this chance to be here today.
you bet.
I'll be simple and direct to the point. I am here to appeal the decision from my court clerk, Adrian Calderon, who is currently a Clerk 1, to be promoted to a Clerk 2. Now, just a moment ago, when you were speaking with Judge DiPiazza and Judge Oglesby, you were talking about the progression of things.
Yeah.
So it seems like this is going to be a real simple,
Yes,
unanimous
really
yes
simple.
for everybody here, which is
Yeah.
great news for me. But most importantly, thank you
It's
for the-
never that easy, but go ahead.
Yes, Judge. But simply put, going from a Clerk 1 to a Clerk 2 is really important for not just Justice of the Peace Court in Precinct 3 specifically, but for the employee too, for Adrian Calderon, because as hard as she works,
Yeah.
and a lot of our clerks, all of our clerks across every field that we have, from the county clerks to the district clerks to the tax office, and everybody in between works really hard. She has excelled with knowledge to where she is performing some of the duties of Clerk 2 even right this moment as she continues to teach, train, and progress her other clerk counterparts who are brand new.
Judge, I wanna talk.
We've had a high level of turnover in the court, and especially if you go back to 2020 and look at some of the turnover that we've had, not just precincts 1 through 6, but specifically in precinct 3, it's been a high level of turnover. And Adrian has come in here helping to teach and train and promote the success of the court by specifically training each of these new employees coming in. So she has really excelled at what she does. Her knowledge of the Justice Court and its diversity and how just incredible the Justice Court really is a huge impact to our community. Specifically, Louisville is about 51% renter. Our evictions have grown. That eviction docket has grown. Not only does she manage the debt claim docket, which deals with credit cards, which is also growing at a similar rate of the evictions, she helps to teach and train both of those and has now been trained and is proficiently running now the small claims docket. So Adrian Calderon absolutely deserves the time and attention that we are appreciative that the Commissioners Court is taking into this consideration. And if you have any additional questions for me at this time, I would absolutely love to field those.
Perfect. Commissioner Mitchell.
Okay, Judge. You painted yourself into a box.
Excellent.
Because if we're going to promote the rest of these clerks, you're just saying Adrian is the only one in your office that needs to be promoted?
At this time, I am.
So you willing to leave all of them at level 1?
I think what Judge DiPiazza argued just a moment ago for changing the justice court clerk role from the deputy clerk role, I agree with his assessment there. But as of right now, I'm not looking at hypotheticals. I'm talking about the right nows. Right nows, we have a progression that the Commissioner's Court was bringing up earlier, that it seems like the right progression of things to have the hierarchy, because the other clerks do look up to her. This clerk two role is a perfect and fitting role for her.
But you're not answering my question. If I decide to vote for these other ones to go from a 1 to 2, only one in your office is gonna get that. Adrian, are you okay with that?
Well,
I-
he would
I-
value uniformity.
We'll see where the Commissioner's Court decides to go. I would love to field that after the decision's rendered. Because circumstances change, and I completely understand where the Commissioner's Court is certainly going to have some decisions to make and is going to be tied up by these things. And I'm not saying all of them don't deserve to be paid more or have the jobs changed. I'm not saying anything like that. Specifically, my appeal is to remain consistent what I originally applied for back in February, or March, when I'm not sure when that was exactly turned in, but that is specifically the appeal that I seek today.
Okay.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Judge,
Commissioner
has the HR department evaluated to say that, yes, there is more duties, different duties now than there were originally for that?
Commissioner Zema, yes, we did. And yes, if you are asking me today, we would recommend that yes, the answer would be yes.
Thank you.
Separate from everything else.
Thank you,
And
Commissioner.
again,
Thank you, Gustavo.
this spoke to JP clerks, and so this was why I brought this forward to be part of a bigger discussion. And that's why. Okay? All right, thank you, Judge.
Judge, Commissioners, thank you all very much. God bless you guys.
Thank you very much.
Next, I'd like to call up our county clerk and our county treasurer. They are doing a joint presentation.
They gonna double team?
They
Double
are.
teaming us.
I will not say double the trouble. I will not say, I will
Yeah.
refrain from that.
We probably own the title double trouble.
Double the
so-
blessing, double the blessing.
Double the blessings, okay.
While Julie's passing out some backup documentation, I want to take a moment to echo the comments that the sheriff made earlier about Alejandro and Gustavo and their teams, and how appreciative we are of their collaboration during the time of budget preparation, and certainly of that of Judge Eads and the court. The recommended budget looks amazing, although we're still here today to appeal. So we thank you for the opportunity to present our appeal to you today. We are here to appeal the pay grades of my assistant county treasurer, and Julie is here to appeal that of her chief deputy county clerk. Over the years, both Julie and I have struggled to maintain internal equity for these positions in relation to other assistants and to other upper management level positions. We understand that salary administration is a very delicate subject, and furthermore, a very delicate system that should be respected and policies followed to avoid certain issues such as what we are facing here today. We have observed reclassifications of positions to higher pay grades that simply cannot be understood, and have caused further concerns to the equity issues that bring us before you today. Our positions are ranked at a grade 17, while other assistants are ranked at grade 18. We are asking for your consideration and approval of an equity adjustment to grade 18 for both of our positions. We have provided you with a list of positions that are at a grade 17 or above for you to see the comparisons to other positions of those same pay grades. Our goal is to not minimize the importance of any position or the persons that hold these positions, so please do not take our efforts out of context. We are here to advocate for our two positions, as we believe their responsibilities are significant or equal or greater to those of a grade 18. So again, we are here advocating for a grade 18 for our two positions.
May I?
Said Commissioner Mitchell.
Okay. I certainly appreciate you advocating for your employees, as you should. The duties, I know I talked to Julie, and she told me that her one of her employees supervised 88 people, Julie?
That is correct. We have 88 staff.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And how many department heads does she have under her?
She has 5 managers under
Five
her.
managers under her. What about you?
So there are
Cindy?
7 employees in my department total, including myself. But we also expend directly through payroll about 50% of the annual budget. We also maintain directly the investment portfolio of $800 million. And we just assumed voluntarily and gratefully so your new hot tax. So, you know, we have significant duties in our office. We may not have the staff, but we have significant value of maintaining all those dollars, for which include the budget every year, that we maintain and watch very carefully for y'all during the time it's unexpended.
Right.
So our significance are still very complicated.
And as we're getting these unfunded mandates that we presented and that, David has presented, these are the people that find ways to work around those. I mean, this is my chief person to make these work.
And how many times have y'all appealed this? I know, Julie, you have, Cindy, I think you have too.
The last time
did
that I
jointly
appealed
before.
it was in 2016, and I
Okay.
got 1 grade higher.
Right,
Back in 2016 for my former assistant.
At that time, I did not get anything. I don't know if you remember, but court took that opportunity to reclassify their staff. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Anybody
Okay.
else?
Members, you have
Yeah,
questions?
I've got one thing.
Yes.
Obviously, I can appreciate you advocating for your employees. It's exactly what you should do, especially under the circumstances. But I hear a lot about equality, and it's not just yourselves. This seems to be something that everybody utilizes across the county. So, right now, our chiefs of staff that we have up here are at pay grade 15. They're responsible for approximately 250,000 citizens per precinct, give or take. So I know what happens in our office, and I know my person is overwhelmed with all types of things, right? And actually is responsible for the day-to-day operations of helping me if I'm not in the office, or if I'm at another meeting and she has to cover a meeting for me. So I look at that and I go, you've already got people that are at 17 and ours are at 15. So if we talk about equality, then I guess we need to be looking at changing ours to an 18 as well. But that's, and again, I'm using this as an example. This is nothing towards you two. You just happen to be up here at this point when we're talking about these individuals and the job titles. Because again, job titles are, unfortunately, can be changed to whatever we need to make them, right? So, I'm not saying what you're asking for is not justifiable, because obviously we all have great needs. But it's just, I'm putting out there for the rest of the court to realize that this is something that we're going to continue looking at across the board in a lot of other areas, not just these two young ladies, what they're responsible for, but this is going to be other areas that we have to be look at in any decision that we make, with any group that we make. So, I didn't really have a question. I'm sorry. It was more of a statement, so I apologize. Thank you, ladies, so much for your time, though.
Members, are there other questions?
I'm done.
Do you have any closing comments or thoughts?
We just appreciate your consideration, and I will close that we serve 1 million people in our offices, so we are not a precinct office.
Right.
So, you know, in our budgetary responsibility, again, you know, I'm overseeing those dollars that y'all budget.
Yes.
Those actual dollars. I'm fighting fraud every day.
Correct.
With bank fraud. I mean, the responsibilities are significant for both of our teams.
I would concur with those
Disagree.
statements.
Judge and Cindy, I just want to point out, when we were going through COVID, you voluntarily brought us data and information that we needed in order to make some important decisions back then. And I'd like to compliment you on that. Julie, I know you were doing your job great, but we just happened to get some really extraordinary information from Cindy, and I appreciate that.
I take great pride when y'all come to me and need something. I take
Absolutely.
great pride in being able to say, yes, I can. I rarely ever say no, because I firmly believe if I can, I'm going to be here for you guys. And any other county official or department head that comes to me, I believe it's what I do and what I do best, and I'm proud of it, so.
Yeah. That's exactly right what both of you do. Commissioner Falconer.
Yeah, this is probably as much a question for you, Judge, but thank you for the information. It's good. And you did a great job doing some highlighting, and you highlighted the 4.
Correct.
But I just want to clarify, we're only considering the 2?
No, I think the court can take any action at once.
Right.
So I have asked the budget office to do a budget impact for all 4 of these if we were
That's-
looking at
yeah, that was
equitable.
really it.
So we obviously in your backup currently you have the 2 that are on the table here requests, but we could take, if you wanted to look at this holistically, we absolutely could. We could, I would concur with the highlighting of comparables here, but I did ask them to price that out for us so the court
I
could
think
have
that
a dollar amount
this
if we want to.
particular, your 2 positions is somewhere around $14,000 or
Correct.
so.
Less than $14,000 budget impact for our
I'm
2
guessing that
requests here
it'll be
today.
Yeah.
something under 30,000 probably, for
Probably
whatever.
so.
Well, yeah, if we consider the 2 that the young ladies are asking for,
Yeah.
you've got to look at the others as well. Yeah,
That's really
absolutely.
my question, but thank you all for.
I have another question, if I may, Judge. You said that your chief deputy supervises 88 employees?
Correct. Yes,
How
ma'am.
do you think that compares with these others that you have highlighted for the tax assessor collector and the district clerk?
I couldn't speak to how many staff they have.
Tax office is probably very similar, around 80 or so employees, and David just mentioned he has 50, 49, including 50 himself. So those are the other 2 positions highlighted
Okay,
that are grade 17s.
thank you.
All right. All right,
Thank you,
thank you.
ladies.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right, let me put lots of paperwork. Let's go to item 6, which is the juvenile grant of basic court intake. And we have Matt Merrick here. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. All right. Good
Thank
to
you
see
for, may I proceed, or?
Yeah, go, please, sir.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. And don't throw things at me. I know the recommended budget already includes 8 juvenile supervision officers and a part-time chaplain. And I wouldn't be here if I didn't feel very strongly about the juvenile probation officer position that we also need. This position actually works in the detention center that operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's actually a gatekeeper position for the department. Any kid that's arrested and brought to juvenile has to stop an intake, get processed, booked in. And so we need this additional position to shore up that unit with the difference in referrals, the increase in referrals that we've seen since 21. It's about 25% more referrals to the department. Denton County continues to grow. This is the cause for us asking for additional supervision officers simply so we can maintain the standards and the ratios needed to supervise these kids. When I initially entered this request, back in April, I think we submitted our budgets, I included it in the juvenile probation budget, which is funded by the county. Since that time, TJJD, our Texas Juvenile Justice Department, has provided us our funding for the next biennium, 24 and 25. At the last biennium, they provided us $2.3 million. This year and the next year, they're providing us $2.9 million. Roughly, it's about $700,000 additional dollars for the juvenile probation department. So my recommendation to the budget office when I submitted my appeal was to include this new position in that funding. There's about $107,000 left that's not but currently budgeted, and this position would be roughly $74,000. So I am requesting that it be approved. The juvenile board met on the 10th. The recommended budget was presented by the budget office. They approved the recommended budget, and they also approved using those state funds to fund that position if the commissioner's court is agreeable. So that's my recommendation.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt. Thank you for providing that justification and the explanation of the reduction in the budget impact due to the state infusion of additional monies. So that was something that was new to us, and so we appreciate you providing that. Members, are there any questions? All right, thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, Judge Ramsey, good afternoon.
Well, I do feel like one of many that I don't want to seem ungrateful, because I really do feel very grateful for everything I have. The county has been, I think, pretty far-thinking in the creation of this magistrate court. It's not a statutory court. One could argue it may not be a court at all, but we are kind of the conduit and the connector between, in Denton County, we rely on our municipals and their processes. County and district clerks, I cannot underscore how much both the county and particularly the district clerk's office, they are the concrete in the building, and we're kind of the float between the two to bring everything together. So I just, my request has been, in my appeals, I had asked to reclassify our court clerk 1 positions that were created in 2019 before Senate Bill 6 and before this last legislative group to make those into court clerk 3 positions. It's a difference of about $3,000 to $4,000 per position, and actually it's 3.5 that we have. I have tried to cut back and tried not to hire additional judicial staff, and the way that I try to do that is by using good qualified people. Senate Bill 6 in 2021 brought us a huge number of differences, excuse me, and additional requirements. So now these court clerks, since the time that these positions were created, must now all be TLET certified, Texas Law Enforcement. They have to have, thank you very much. Nothing like drinking in court.
I'm sure it's not the first time.
Oh, yeah, in fact, normally in the mornings, I smell that drink when they come into court.
I bet you do.
The smells of the jail are always, will wake you up. It's not coffee in the morning, but it's something. But our clerks must now be certified just like law enforcement officers. They have to have access. They have to have all the clearances. They have to attend the 8-hour training. So we've gotten them all certified. They do have to also receive their training and certification for the new PSRS, or Public Safety Reporting System. They generate these reports prior to anyone appearing before the judge. They collate and disseminate bail documents. One of our biggest problems in Denton County is, again, we rely on the cities of Louisville, Denton, Carrollton, Flower Mound, Highland Village, and the Colony, and Frisco to all generate their own documents, and there's never been a nexus to bring all those together. So unfortunately, our clerks have to decide what documents they need before they have any interplay with a judge. They contact those courts, get the information they need, try to collate it. We're trying to really back up our conditions of bond and our protective orders. And you would be amazed at how many times agencies do not have that information, or I've been told by 1 or 2 agencies before that it was none of our business before we set bond. And I said, you want to come get your prisoner? We're good with that. So we're working through those problems, but they have to deal with that issue. They also help determine which documents need to be completed. And as of this last judicial session, legislative session, they now have to communicate. 17027 was added as part of Senate Bill 6 and enhanced in this last go-round, that requires that if we see someone who is out on bond in some other county, we have to initiate contact with them, provide them with the information, decide which counties. Simply finding those counties, 254 counties across the state, there is no one central database yet. Even within this court, they have to communicate, even within this county, they have to communicate with each court that has a case pending. So if they have a district court pending in Judge Shipman's, they have to contact her court. If they have one and Judge Peel's county court, they have to contact that. If it's unfiled, then we have to decide if we're going to hold that bond insufficient. We have created some innovative dockets. This is kind of a secondary issue, but all of these clerks perform these additional duties, and that is we have a personal bond docket. By law, certain people are required to be released on personal bonds. We've created a docket that is on Fridays together with adult probation. They're scheduled, they're told to reappear For years, we've had people out on bond for a year or 2 years without it being filed, and we had no tracking of these people. So we're now requiring that they appear, check in, and we modify that. We also enforce our conditions of bond. So all of those are new creations that we've had. And as I said, 17027's been added, personal bond requirements, and there's 17003. And even the last one, I'm not sure I understand the exact impact, but there was a House Bill 3474 had Section 80 that requires that we now also e-file everything that we have and produce and provide notices to that e-file. We're having to work through that. So we have a very, everyone here, and one thing I can certainly echo, everybody's court clerks, everybody in the county does something I don't understand. And they have duties and certain things, but our people, we live in Never Never Land. We really do. Matter of fact, I was thinking of creating a t-shirt for our group, and I was gonna have Gumby as our symbol because we're always flexible. We never know what we got. Our dockets don't remain the same. And 3 of these positions are in the jail. I think you understand the concept of being in the jail and that it's not exactly the most pleasant. It sometimes has its entertainment value, I suppose, but it's not the most pleasant environment. And something that I know that one of the JPs mentioned is that we are having trouble having people want to stay in that jail. They're looking for new positions. And so my request is for Clerk 1 to Clerk 3 positions. I think they're well warranted. In fact, even according to the job descriptions in the county system, if you look at Clerk 3, in fact, I had a little handout here if y'all are interested in that.
Sure, absolutely, sir.
May I approach?
Yes, please.
At the top, you'll see our court clerk description that is under court clerk 1. And if you compare it to the court clerk 3 positions in county, district,
Thank you, Judge.
in JP, it's similar to their court clerk 3s, if not a little bit more complex because of our Senate Bill 6 PSRS requirements and file. So I have a hard time making the distinction between what we have listed as court clerk 1 and what they have listed as court clerk 3.
Okay, can I?
So I'll certainly answer any questions you may have.
Ask a
Members,
question when you finish?
Commissioner Mitchell.
Okay, you went right from court clerk 1 to court clerk 3. What happened to 2?
This position, all these positions were created in 2019, and that was before many of these duties were created and added on. Senate Bill 6 was probably the most comprehensive change in criminal process that I can recall. They basically gutted 3/4 of a chapter, Chapter 17, and completely rewrote it. And almost all those functions fall on our people. Matter of fact, to be honest, a little self-serving to say this, but if the county had not created this process, I'm not sure how we would have dealt with Senate Bill 6.
Right.
So the answer is, yeah, back when they were requested and created, court clerk 1 was appropriate. Had I requested them today, I would be requesting a court clerk 3 if we were creating it today.
So would you wipe out, they'd start at court clerk 3 rather than 1 or 2, just not have 1 or 2 and just have it set at 3?
Yes, ma'am, I believe I would. I mean, I kind of like this idea of moving, the
Progression.
progression. I think that's very good, but if I were creating them now, I would have, yeah, if it was in 2023 as opposed to 2019 they're created, I think they deserve a clerk 3.
Okay, thank you.
Judge, my question really piggybacks on Commissioner Mitchell's. Is there any kind of progression within your department now?
No, there's not, and part of that reason is because every month we created a new function, and I kept thinking they would all kind of specialize, and they would become their own entity, and so they'd just be working on that. But keep in mind that when I had these positions, that includes weekend and holiday. So those three and a half positions are Saturday, Sunday, holidays, and the rest of the week. And so everyone has to be able to do everyone else's job. So we do not have that currently. If this is not successful, I guess I could ask for a whole new position next year. But to be honest, I've done this to try to save creation positions. I am very thankful for the mere fact that y'all even created this office at all. So I don't want to seem ungrateful. At the same time, I even said in a phone call, my wife would kill me if she doesn't watch this.
Good for her.
I hear about it.
Well, she didn't know it's on.
I'll have to tell her about it.
But I said that, you know, if you have to cut my salary and give it to these 3 positions, I go for that.
We are not telling her that. We are not telling her that.
Yeah, well, yeah, that would be a very uncomfortable discussion. I believe in what they're doing, and if I had to sum it up, it's analyzation, it's communication, and it's dissemination in ways that I would have never foreseen 3 years ago.
So Judge, what is the total budget impact if we were to grant your request?
It's roughly 3,500, 4,000 per position. So if you, 3.5.
It's about 17,000.
If I could do that math, I would have gone to med school.
It's about 17.
Yeah. People can't do math like that, go to law school instead of med school.
Judge, a quick question.
Go right ahead.
Judge, thank you. And again, I'm going to start off because I don't know. I don't know how those are operated, so I'm just asking. But one of yours, as you mentioned, is part-time.
Yes, sir.
And I don't know any of these people, right? But oftentimes, part-time have a more limited scope. Do you not see that in this case at all?
Because the difference is we perform 1 magistration per day as opposed to 2 on Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays. So they do the same functions.
I see. So they're just doing half of that.
They're just doing half, and I would say that half the day.
Got it.
But they were out by noon before, and she's now staying to about 2.
Got it.
So.
Okay.
Some amount of cases,
That was it. Thank you.
but please.
Perfect. Okay. Any other questions? Judge Ramsey. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And thank you for building that department.
And thanks for the free water.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Complimentary.
Taxpayers,
Yeah, taxpayers. You thank the taxpayers.
taxpayer funded.
Okay. Next is number 8. This is about our fire code enforcement, and Brad Sebastian and Jody Gonzalez are going to both make presentations on this. So I don't know who wants to go first. Is Brad? Brad going to go first. Okay. Hello.
Good afternoon, Judge, Commissioners. First off, thank you for the opportunity. And also thank you to Alejandro and Gustavo, not only taking many phone calls, but actually invited me to their office, or accepted me to their office.
That's right.
So thank you. The Fire Marshal's office is a law enforcement division made up of 8 personnel, to include the Chief Fire Marshal, the 2 Assistant Fire Marshals, and the Fire Marshal, fire investigators. Much like the Constable's office, we serve as a separate law enforcement agency for the county, but still enforcing laws in which we vowed to uphold. It is essential to recognize also that the responsibilities and certifications that extend beyond traditional law enforcement duties and the certifications such as fire investigator, fire inspector, code enforcement officer, and most of us also have emergency medical certifications. The Fire Marshal's Office investigators have always been equitably compared to the Sheriff's Office investigators. So I'm asking that our 2 assistants and our 5 investigators be moved from the general pay scale to the law enforcement pay scale and be included in the 14% market salary increase.
Okay. Go right ahead, Commissioner.
Questions?
Do we include the constables in the
Yes.
Yes,
the law
ma'am.
enforcement?
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Commissioner,
Yes, sir.
just the only reason we are talking about this is because for whatever reason, back in the day, they were put in the civilian pay scale. We are just moving them to the law enforcement pay scale.
Where they should be.
Maybe.
So when the budget was figured for all law enforcement, fire marshals were not included in that, is that correct?
We were put into the general pay scale, not
But
on the law
not the
enforcement
fire,
pay
the
scale.
law enforcement.
And it's
Correct.
been
Not
that,
the same
yeah, it's been that way
concept.
for a long time, Diane. This was not a action that we, yeah, that we didn't decline or something. That's
This
correct.
wasn't a purposely done by any means. It was, I'm gonna, from my perspective, this is me, not anybody else, it was an overlook or an oversight for us not to include your department in that as far as the law enforcement.
I would
And I don't wanna call
characterize it
this an
as a
oversight.
housekeeping item.
Yeah,
as
okay,
a
thank you.
housekeeping, yeah.
That sounds
Yeah.
a lot better.
Right.
So,
I'm tracking with you.
yeah, no, thank you.
Judge, I wanted to add that, this was really brought to you guys for consideration, not necessarily Brad bringing it as an appeal, because it was just one of those things that was laid out as a housekeeping item as well. And then what I wanted to add that there is another law enforcement agency that's standalone that is in the law enforcement pay scale, and that's the DA's office investigator. So the DA office investigators, constable, and the sheriff are all in the law enforcement scale.
I mean, it actually could be included in the miscellaneous discussion with the other housekeeping items.
Correct.
Below. Yeah, thank you, Jody.
Which was,
Any other questions for Brad? All right, thank you. Thank you for what you do.
thank you, sir.
Are we addressing?
You had one more while he's up here, Judge.
Oh, yeah,
if
go
you wanted to
ahead.
cover
The
that one.
vehicle. Yeah, go ahead.
So this was for the senior inspector. The senior inspector was recommended by by budget to be transferred from development service to fire code enforcement. The position was filled as a transfer, I believe, and not as a new employee. Therefore, the maintenance and operation items were not transferred from the new employee request. So I believe this is just an oversight, so I'm asking that the maintenance and operation items be added, and that would include the vehicle.
Okay. All right, it'll be a cleanup. All right, questions for Brad? All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I've got, this is not really for Brad, just on the vehicle. So, we put the $40,000 in for the vehicle itself, but that's a capital item typically, right? And is it a purchase? We're not leasing, right? And so,
I defer to
Capital
Jody
purchase at this
or
point.
Ryan about
Purchase at
that.
this point, it's capital purchase. Oh, sorry.
Yes, those are capital purchases.
and I may have asked it, we don't really allocate line item into a sinking fund or whatever you want to call it, because obviously that 40,000, the next year you won't have it, but then 5 years from now you will have it again. And so
Correct. It's from a common pool,
Yeah,
That's correct.
a pool of money, a fund of money.
right, but we fund that money, we don't fund it yearly?
No.
Yes, every year.
we do
Every
fund-
year,
we
there's
fund it
several
yearly.
$1 million that is rolling for.
But you're asking, there is a vehicle budget specifically that
But
all
it doesn't,
vehicles are
it doesn't come
procured
out
out.
individually, it comes out as a gross amount.
Gross.
Is that right? Okay,
That's correct.
all right, thank you.
Mike-
Yes, I knew
Mike-
that,
Mike.
I just wasn't sure
Funds come
how
from
we.
pool of funds, if you will.
I know your point, which is, do you
Sorry, Ryan.
amortize that over 5 years and then you're,
Right.
and you're.
I'm just asking, yeah.
Hitting it, yeah.
And they
We,
fall in different
we don't do that.
Yeah, about 2 years ago, we created a single budget for all vehicle purchases and removed the individual requests for vehicles out of the individual budgets by department and moved them into a single budget so we
Yeah.
could purchase them all out of one
Yeah, yeah,
budget
yeah.
line.
It's a lot cleaner.
All right, thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Good question,
Yep.
Commissioner.
Thanks.
All right. Any other items related to that number 8? All right, we are going to take a 5-minute recess, and we're going to come back and hear all the miscellaneous discussion. We'll take a 5-minute recess.
Great idea, we got a whole cup of coffee.
I know, that's what I say.
You've done this before.
We're back. Let's go to item number 9. This is a miscellaneous discussion with lots of different points we want to kind of clarify, and I'll start out with Commissioner Ryan Williams first.
Thank you, Judge. So I just wanted to, if you look at all the things and everybody we've talked to, so many things come down to obviously the financial needs of your offices and trying to make sure you're taking care of your people in a fashion that meets their requirements, meets your requirements, and the workload, if you will. And at the end of the day, the type of job and how well they're doing at their job.
Yeah.
And the way our compensation structure is set up, it really doesn't always allow the person, you can have two people at, I'm just going to use a number, 15 or 10, 12, whatever you want to call it. And you could have somebody that's really doing a phenomenal job for you, and then you could have somebody that's just coming in, clocking in, doing their basics and going home, right? But at the end of the day, not only are we handcuffing our directors, because if a director wants to give this person a raise that's doing such a wonderful job, that means everybody they have to get reclassed, which the only way you get reclassed is if you're doing some different duty than what was being done before, or you have to figure out the only way you can give them a raise is basically a reclass. You can't come in and give them a merit raise because we don't really do merit raises. And my problem with that is I don't think you're doing the people justice and or our county justice by saying, okay, 2 of you are at 15 and I'm going to pay you the same. I want to give you a raise, but if I give you a raise, this person's going to get one as well. But although they're not working as hard.
Yeah.
And that's just tough for me because I don't come from that world. I don't come from everybody gets a trophy world. I come from a world, if you come in and you work hard and you do a little bit more than the person next to you and you're trying to prove yourself, and maybe we don't have a spot above for them to move in at the point. Maybe we don't have a new position for them to move in. But by golly, I want to reward them for what they are accomplishing and what they are bringing to the table without rewarding others that don't quite deserve it. I mean, that's just the facts. We've been very fortunate here to be able to give, since I've been in office, every year it's been a 5% across the board raise for all of our employees. That's phenomenal. I mean, it is. Just go out and look and see how things are. That is phenomenal, which is great. But then when you start trying to figure out how you can do something better for others to separate the achievers from the, I don't want to call it non-achievers, but from the people that just come to work and, punch the clock is what I, used to call it. I don't think it's punch the clock anymore. But anyway, I feel that we really need to look at evaluate our compensation program, maybe how we have it set up. And again, I know I'm new and I'm probably asking for something that is gonna, it's gonna be a lot of work, and I don't mind putting the time and energy into it. I don't mind meeting with HR and figuring out some options. Doesn't mean that's what we do, but we have some options. I mean, these guys' office, as everybody said, has done a phenomenal job. They get back with you quickly. I asked for a couple things. I mean, it was back to me within an hour, if not quicker, which I was extremely impressed because I'm not the only one asking. There's a lot of people asking. But nevertheless, I just feel that we need to look at another option or evaluate how we do our classifications or how we do our raises and come up with some type of merit program where I'm just going to use you two for example, because you're up here. If you two, for example, want to give somebody in your area a raise and you don't have to do a reclass, and we come up and say, hey, this is how much money we have this year to give for raises. We're going to give you X amount of dollars for your area. You decide where those dollars go. Because I don't know your employees to that extent. I don't know, who's doing a wonderful job in your office unless you just tell me, right? Because I don't do the evaluations. And we shouldn't be. That's what you get to do. But at the end of the day, we choose almost whether those people get those dollars or not sometimes. And I just think that there's maybe a better way to do it. That's all I should say. And I'm not knocking the way we do things here. Please realize
Oh,
that.
sure.
I just think that there may be a better way, another hybrid way. I don't know.
Well, I
But I'd
think-
like to ask to be involved somehow into putting something like that together.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
I
Judge.
think we're always about process improvement. Commissioner Mitchell.
And Ryan, I think that's a great idea, but I want to remind everyone, when we do the reviews, depending on what number you give that person that may not be doing a great job as to whether they get that raise or not. So we do have some kind of, something in there for people that,
To not get a raise,
Yeah,
but
Not
he's
get a
talking
raise.
about
we have a
to-
stick, we don't really have a carrot.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
We cannot give
we
you
do have,
anything.
we do have something there. But in merit raises, I think merit raises are great. If we would all honestly, not say we just like one person and we decide we're gonna give them the raise whether they, do the job or not. That is a problem in a lot of departments, not accusing anybody of doing anything, okay? But that is a problem in a lot of departments, but you're right, we do need to look at, is there something different that we can do?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Judge,
Yes, ma'am.
as a former headhunter, there may be some unintended consequences if we look at something like this. For example, you may be looking very objectively at how A does her job versus how B does her job. But if it turns out that one of those people that perhaps does not get the increase feels that he or she has been discriminated against for something other than performance. And we've got a perfect example going on right now. We are being sued by someone who is claiming a discriminatory actions were taken when that was not at all what happened. But here we are. So sometimes what we want to do becomes complicated by how it may be perceived by somebody that we don't even know at this particular point in time.
Yeah. And I don't disagree, but you could do that with the way we're doing it right now. I mean, truthfully, if
We
we
know
give
that.
certain people certain people new classifications and then we don't other groups. So, yes, you're absolutely right. At any point in time, somebody can sue you for anything, unfortunately.
But it's always good to look at different
Yeah.
things.
So I think this is a perfect time to, as we conclude one fiscal year and look at the next, as we look at organizational goals, and this is something that the court of, unofficially has looked at off and on in my years on the court. And I'm glad you're bringing this forward so that we can talk about it. And I think it's the devil's in the details, as with anything, but I think we're never going to get to fully explore some new and best practices without doing some thoughtful research, and so I would love for you to work with HR and let's work up some concepts, and it impacts lots of elected officials across the county, and so I would for sure want us to be sure to include a working group to look at that, and so that not only some of our department heads with subject matter knowledge and expertise, but with our fellow elected officials, our representatives of those different groups, so that we can look to evaluate something on paper. So I'd be very open to that. So thank you. That is more of a discussion item as it relates to this, and so we want to be sure to include that. So thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir.
Next is, I'll hand this off to Alejandro this is regarding the county criminal courts and probate courts. We're going to give a quick update on that. Go right ahead, sir.
Yes, Commissioners, what we're doing here is we are deleting $1,500 in juvenile board allowance based on HB House Bill 3474, and we're simply increasing the salary for the listed county courts by that same amount so that we can continue to be in compliant with Texas Government Code 25.0632, which does dictate what the salary needs to be for the judges. So this is in order to be compliant with the statutorily required salaries for the judges.
All right, any questions? All right, next is let's go to our fire code enforcement. Go ahead and do that one, Alejandro.
Judge, this is the item that Brad discussed regarding the vehicle and maintenance and operation for the fire marshal.
Okay. All right, thank you. Next is, it's just moving funding from one source to the other, and I'd worked with Rena Maloney about asking her to identify some potential grants for our camp property that we recently acquired, and so she was working with our auditor, Mr. May, about looking at some opportunities to, for not only grants, but other funding sources. And so, Jeff, I'm proud of you for thinking of an innovative way which we could do some offsets to our operating account as far as library funding. So, Jeff, do you want to go ahead and go over that?
Sure. What I was recommending, we have a special revenue fund. One of these funds that we talked about that was building up a balance, and this one's never been used. It's our Chapter 381 fund. But one of the authorized uses is to fund reading programs, literature programs. And so it makes it eligible to use those funds to fund the libraries. So what we proposed doing was to fund the libraries out of there, which was, I forgot,
431,000.
a little over
The 400,000, okay. Yeah.
Yes, a little over 400,000. And that frees up the money in the general fund and for using it for what you were needing it for, which is almost the same amount. So, and then we can adjust the difference in the tax. We're going to move that to the permanent improvement fund and then adjust the tax rate to compensate.
So it's a swap out since we have another allowed use, so it's a savings. So we're able to swap that out. So just wanted to bring that in the spirit of transparency, bring that to the court and let y'all know about that, and we can take affirmative action on that in just a little bit.
Judge?
Yes, ma'am.
You may remember years ago when we were funding almost all the libraries in the county, and some of the larger libraries refused to put a filter on their computers.
Yes, ma'am.
Just one of them didn't. At any rate, they would not put a filter on their computer so that juveniles could not get into pornography and terrorism and all that. So we dropped the funding. As we're looking at funding now, I'd like to bring to the court's attention the fact that there is a bill that has been passed and signed into law by the governor which prohibits pornographic material from becoming available to kids at public or school libraries. So if we're going to fund some of these libraries, I think we should put into our contract with them that they will not allow any of these adult materials to be shown or checked out from the juvenile section. We're not trying to ban anything, but what's suitable for adults is not always suitable for children. So I hope we can consider doing something along those lines.
And thank you, Commissioner. That's not an action for today. That would be a discussion item for future contracting with the libraries across in the cities across the county. But we were strictly allocating funding today. But that's a future discussion. And thank you for bringing that up.
Judge?
Yes, sir.
By the way, and Jeff, I like your idea of being able to use it, but just for my information, you said we haven't used any of those Chapter 381 funds, so.
That's correct.
And those have come from?
That comes from unclaimed capital credits for electric co-ops. And what happens is people don't cash their checks and they send it to the state. The state holds it 3 years and then disperses a portion of it to the counties.
And we may not be able to continue doing this ad infinitum, I guess, but at least for some period of time, we can do this, right?
Currently, that fund has about $4.8 million in it. So
it's a lot. It's a sizable amount.
So
it's public funds because it's in our treasury, as the treasurer can attest, but it is not derived through tax dollars.
Yeah.
And so this was funding that we were going to use initially for some of our COVID grants, our business grants, and then we ended up getting the CARES money, so we used the federal money for that. But this is money that's been accumulating.
Well, I like the fact that we've got something where we haven't really had that we are finding a good use.
We're having it's an offset for our general fund that we could allocate to some other good public improvements.
That's great.
So, all right, good. Thank you for the question. Okay, the next would be the permanent improvement fund, and this would be. Go ahead and handle that one. Alejandro, that last one.
That's related to the same thing.
Same thing. It's a moving from the one to the next. There's no other
Which I also
action
like
there.
that.
Okay, so that handles the appeals part of our workshop. So let's go to your members, if you'll kindly turn to your last page.
Yeah,
If you'll turn to your last page of your green file folder.
The other motions page.
Yes, the other motions page. So let's go to, we'll go through these in order, and then we will go through, and I'd like for us to go through these in order, unless you have any other thoughts, and then we will go through our appeals, okay? So our first decision would be the approving of the 5% slide. And so I will go ahead and I'll read this action, and then we can get a motion or a second. Approval of sliding by 5% to the general employee broadband healthcare and attorney pay scale system, and everyone within, including probationary employees, appointed officials and elected officials that are not on a pay scale system. This increases the minimum and maximums of the grades to assist with getting pay for employees closer to the market. It helps to address maxed out employees. The increase is applied in accordance with salary administration guidelines, and the 5% increase is included in the recommended budget. Do we have a motion for approval?
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Falconer, second by Commissioner Williams. Any discussion?
A question,
Yes, please.
please. We also give longevity pay. Is that included at all when we're talking in this particular motion? Is that affected at all by this?
That is handled separately, but it's not, it is accounted for in the overall recommended budget, but it's not part of this particular motion.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next is approval of sliding by 14% to the law enforcement pay scale system and everyone within, including probationary employees. This increases the minimum maximums of the grades to assist with getting pay for employees closer to the market and helps to address maxed out employees. The increase is applied in accordance with the salary administration guidelines, and the 14% increase is included in the recommended budget.
Move to approve.
We have a mo,
Well, I guess that goes to the.
ma'am?
Is that
That's a separate action. That's on the appeal. Yes, ma'am, it's on the appeal. Good question. We have a motion by Commissioner Williams. Who was the second? Commissioner Edmondson. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next is, I would like to make an amendment to this spreadsheet here, and so I will make a motion to approve the salary revisions for fiscal year 2024 included in the recommended budget. Salary revisions can include reclassifications, market salary adjustments, and market clarifications, equity adjustment, and title changes. And I would move to accept that as presented with an amendment to change position 005CJ from an 11 recommendation to a 9. And that would be my motion.
Okay, and I've got a couple questions on this one.
I would recommend we
Do we
talk
have-
about that separately.
Okay, do we have a
I know
second
you
to the
don't have-
motion?
We don't have a second to the motion.
Okay, do we have an additional motion?
I would move is that the 005CJ?
Yes.
I move that it stay as is.
And I second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Is this one, since this is a existing employee, that could have an executive session conversation about that particular?
No, we cannot.
No, you cannot.
No, it's a financial discussion.
Yeah,
It's
that's
in
the tough thing.
your book.
That's the tough part of it.
On page S43.
That's,
Here.
Under the recommended budget.
that's this one.
This is what it is.
Down middle wage to page 005 CJ. S43. Y'all
Which
find it?
page?
S43. Right before the recommended budget.
Yeah, hang on.
It looks like this, Diane, but right before the recommended budget. You see the, oh, right in here, right here. S 43 right there on this page. Y'all find it?
Judge, will you have the motion restated, please?
The motion is to keep it as a 7. The motion is to keep it as a 7.
I'd like to move to amend the motion to make it as a 9.
Well, you can't amend my motion,
I could, I think.
because we got a second on it.
Yeah, but I think you can still amend
Do we,
it.
Hang on, let me do my
you can't
parliamentary
amend my
procedure.
motion.
That's different than.
Yeah,
I think we would have to,
yeah, I'd have to,
Okay,
Yeah.
I think we would have to vote against the motion to
motion
keep it as
before
a,
we
to
could-
keep it as a,
yeah.
to keep it as a 7.
thank you.
And it would be, we would
Then you can go
could
back.
defeat the motion and
Yeah,
then go
so-
back and do a 9, yes.
Yeah, we
So we
got a
do have a
motion and a
motion to not acknowledge the reclassification from a 7 to an 11, and nor to a 9, so we would keep it the same. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
Nay. So we have 3 in favor, Commissioner,
opposed.
and 2 opposed, okay?
Okay,
It stays as a 7.
okay.
So we need to go back and approve the overall plan, correct?
And then,
Then we got,
I'm sorry, Judge, I've got,
That was for that one particular, item. Was that,
Yes,
that was just for that?
Yeah.
For that individual one, okay? So we go
I
back
think
to do
that's-
the
that's for
remaining
the-
balance.
that was a salary revision and title change. That
It was a
wasn't,
salary
that
revision.
wasn't new employees or anything, yeah.
No,
okay,
that
it's
was
not
a
new
salary.
employees, and that's not a
Okay,
revision. Okay.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the balance of the salary, the reclassifications?
I'm sorry, Judge, I apologize.
Yep.
Forgive the
Okay.
ignorance.
Yep.
Obviously, under the circumstances. So if I've got some that are reclassed, this is not the time to talk about the reclass, that's.
Yes, it
It
is.
is it
This
not?
is.
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right, so, I've got slot 001-CC. Do we do one at a time?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
All right. My vote is to,
So hang
or
on, what page are you on?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
43.
What?
I mean, S43, I'm sorry.
Ryan, what was the number again of that line?
The number I have, which doesn't mean it's
001.
001-CC.
Okay,
You got us running all over the place. Hold on a second. It's not you, it's me.
And it's on that same page?
That same page, Diane,
Right.
at the top of it.
My recommendation is to leave that as a grade 11 as well. Leave it where it is.
Easy, okay.
that is your,
Motion, if you
that is your motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion to keep position 001CC as an 11 and not reclassified to a 13. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? Hearing lack of a second, the motion dies.
No problem.
All right, next, what was your next one?
It'd be 002-CC.
Okay,
Same motion to leave it as a 15.
all right, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Same page,
Be the same page.
right under that, Diane,
Okay, I
002
see it.
CC.
I was looking at the wrong column.
We have a motion, do we have a second? Hearing none, the
I'll
motion
second,
dies.
just so we can discuss, please.
Okay,
Okay,
So this, I just want to make sure this is,
We're here now. Okay. So I think it's imperative for me to explain my scenario here. It has nothing to do with the individuals, obviously. I think they do a wonderful job. But I think that we have to lead by an example. And if we're going to be difficult on, not difficult, wrong choice of words. If we're not going to, if we're gonna have so many that we're obviously gonna not agree to, we have to lead by example on our own area by the people that report to us and, do the same type of thing we expect others to do. And that's not to be giving raises and promotions based on, or other than the 5% that we've already, allowed. And so, I think a reclass in some situations is just an avenue to give raises. That's one reason I don't love the way our pay structure is. Again, this has nothing to do with individuals. This has to do with what
Position.
is correct in my mind.
Okay.
So,
All right.
and unfortunately, this is predecessor, we're doing this prior to the new hire, if that
Right,
makes
that's-
sense.
yeah. So we
Because
should have done the
if
other one.
Right, well, it is
No,
how, it is how it falls,
Yeah,
right?
because
So,
if we're not gonna
because-
do the rehire, then I'm not gonna be in favor of the reclass.
Right, but if we're,
Well,
then
if you
it
want to do
changes
the,
things.
if you want to do the, we
Yeah,
can do the
'cause-
new hires.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I say that
Can we jump
changes
to that?
my
So what do we need to do with this motion? Do we need to
table, I guess we can table it.
Well,
just let
you
it
can
die?
Table it
withdraw
for-
it.
Okay.
Withdraw it.
Withdraw?
So if
Okay.
we're not
I'll
gonna do the
withdraw my
rehire,
motion.
I'm not for,
And I'll
I'm not for the
I'll
reclass.
withdraw myself.
I'll withdraw
On
my
that
motion
particular
until
one.
after we do the new hire.
Okay.
Is that okay? Is that
Why
appropriate?
don't we proceed with the rest? Was there other
No, sir.
reclassifications that are in question? You entertain a motion to accept well, let's go to the new hires and then we'll come back and do this. Okay, so we'll put the rest of the
Next one under that.
reclasses on hold.
Okay.
Let's go to the next item, which is approval of new positions in the recommended budget. This is 26 full-time positions and 1 part-time position.
Okay.
Do we have pages on that? I guess I'll have to find it.
That's 42 is new.
Okay,
The chair will move for approval of the recommended new positions. Do we have a second?
I've got a,
I'll second that for discussion.
discussion.
All right, we have a motion by the judge, second by Commissioner Mitchell. Proceed.
For discussion.
Who
Judge,
wants
you
to
mind if I-
go ahead?
Okay,
What
thank you, sir.
page are we on?
I'm trying to find the,
Starting at S38.
Right, okay, got it.
Thank you.
Got it.
mine says 01.10.10. Just, let me go. I don't have enough paperwork.
Yeah, I got too much.
Maybe it's in your other car line.
Yeah, exactly. No, ma'am, I've got it, thank you, though. I will have it.
Here we go. This one.
Okay.
So it is.
That's 38, yeah, he said that.
I would
Under
like to take
recommended
a
budget.
look at that salary, Judge.
Summary.
Oh, recommended summary, I apologize.
Which one?
So I've just.
Apologize to the
The,
court.
new employee,
So it's-
Well, feel free to,
oh, that's 47, that's
Get
not
in there.
50. Oh, I thought it was more than that,
It's S30.
just 38.
Getting there.
Look at the top, the very top, right here.
Okay.
Let's say it's 47.
Sorry about that, Judge.
The,
okay.
the total is the
So is it the
benefits.
01?
I think it's the O.
Yes, the,
Oh,
yeah,
one
so,
dot
01 dot,
Page are we on?
I'm sorry, S38, sir, of the
Recommended summary.
recommended summary.
Uh-huh.
And
Number of new positions, right?
Positions,
on, for the Commissioners Court, 01.10.10, I'm recommending that not be a hire.
Okay.
So I'm making a motion not to make that hire.
Kinda-
No,
I'm
we're in
sorry,
a-
I'm
we're in a
sorry.
motion to accept
You're right.
it.
Right now, that's that's the discussion point.
Yeah, you're discussing it,
Yeah.
because we have a motion to,
We have a motion to
Approve.
Accept
approve
as
as presented. We have a motion to accept it as presented.
Judge, are we approving the
And you have
77?
concerns
Or is,
about that position?
Correct.
Okay, those duly noted,
Are we-
Commissioner.
recommending the 77 or the 47?
The salary is the 47.
That's just the total.
The grand total is the
Benefits.
Benefits is
benefits and
77.
complete package.
Okay.
All right, your comments, Commissioner, expressed and noted. Is there any other questions?
Could we have a little more description of what this is really gonna do?
Okay, go ahead. I'll have Jody answer that. Go ahead, Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Commissioner. One of the things that this position was the job descriptions, a draft job description has been created for this position, but the events coordinator is specifically related to the increased public use space across the county and across all of our public facilities, specifically this building, with the use of the 2020 room. The increase of complexity of the rooms and the use of complexity of those rooms has increased the level of responsibility of the aide to the Commissioner's Court office. The original job description for the aide to Commissioner's Court really talked about just taking applications for the duties of the space, right? Just, really accepting an applications. But now I think that the rooms and facilitation of the rooms become more complex with the amount of use, the amount of setup, tear down, the amount of janitorial that it takes. Some of the offset for the cost of this could be utilized by reducing the janitorial. We created the new janitorial contract this fiscal year. It's a good 5-year contract, but in that janitorial, we set stipulations with a new company that said we could increase or reduce janitorial services across county buildings. As part of that is when we utilize this building, we have hundreds of people attending one single meeting. We have an increased level of janitorial need during those meetings. Specifically related to taking out the trash, making sure that the restrooms are upkeep and things like that. This was a part of the responsibility for this position, not just for this building, but utilized countywide for public use across the county. An additional use for this later in the fall would be potential use of the new building at Briarwood that we would have. Once we get the AV system that you guys approved up and running, that facility would then be part of the job responsibilities of this person to do a make-ready to create the facilities. Another example is, tablecloths I use. When we set tablecloths off, those tablecloths have to be pulled, they have to be taken to the cleaners, they have to be cleaned, they have to be picked up, they have to be brought back. All that is additional duties put on the aide to the court right now. It's a set up and tear down of all the public space across the county. And that would include Southwest Courthouse for you.
I was just going to comment on that, Jody. We pretty well ask facilities to set up Southwest Courthouse how the meeting requires, whether it's tables and chairs or just chairs or whatever. Is there a possibility that we could either increase or at least examine the fees that are charged right now for use of these facilities that would help offset part of the cost of this new position?
I think that's something that we could look at in future policies, and part of this would be not only this building, but other rooms on this campus and our new camp, which is going to be heavily utilized. And so I think this makes good business sense that that this position is be fully utilized and also could do other custodial or janitorial functions here in this building and grow into it. So I think it'd be part of our business model that a person's fully utilized, and that's why this is presented as part of the recommended budget. This is something we've been considering for quite some time, even about this building, in addition to our other assets that the counties and the court has recently acquired and is going to be having fully operable. And I think just, we spend a lot of time on this. And that's why it's part of the recommended budget, because we believe this would be a good practice moving forward.
Judge, do you mind?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay. Is there a vehicle that's going to be needed for this, or is that individual use their own vehicle and we do like mileage type reimbursement?
No, we anticipated that, we'd been probably discussing this back all the way into February, January timeframe when we were really looking at this position. So we did kind of, in vehicle assessment committee, we looked at pulling one of those older road and bridge vehicles. So there is an additional truck that's kind of been allocated. If you guys approve this position, we would have a vehicle allocated for that.
And so one more thing, because I've heard a few times we talk about or heard that this is something that we've been considering for a while. First off, this, as we all know, came to us very late in the game. And if you look on the S38 under initial request, there's no request that was initially made for this position. It came out afterwards.
Correct.
So that doesn't tell me that, I'm sorry, I'm just saying, that doesn't tell me that's something we've been looking at for a while. And again, it goes back to for me, if I'm gonna be telling
Sure.
all these other departments that they can't have new hires,
We are doing new hires.
I would have,
Correct.
you know what I'm saying? Okay, we're not giving 60 whatever new hires that have been asked. I personally just think that we need to regroup and take a look. Doesn't mean that we can't put this back on at some point if we need to have an individual for this position. We do it throughout the year in a lot of other positions. But I just want to understand that how it's really justifiable. I don't feel that yet. I haven't had enough information to justify it. Thank you, Judge.
Judge, could I just do a little bit of a comparison real
I've got a
quickly?
question too.
I told you that we look for facilities to take care of that for us out at Southwest Courthouse. And when I look under the facilities management budget, that's the very same price range that they are paying for their new hires. So I don't think it's out of line from that standpoint at all. And I'm lucky in that what facilities comes out and does for us seems to happen without any problems. But we don't have nearly the kind of events at my courthouse that we do here in the 2020 room. And you're right, that's becoming more and more prevalent that we're using that. So I have no problem with this one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Do we have, what is our history on, I don't know enough about how many events we're having in the 2020 room and then at Briarwood.
Well, they send Cheryl sends a spreadsheet out to us
Monthly.
every month.
But if, let's say we have one a day?
No.
Yes,
Okay.
and anticipate, so part of this is the new acquisition of the camp with all that meeting space.
I just because I think to Commissioner Williams' point, if it is one a day, we're going to spend $312 per event for a person. That's a lot of money for an event, and I don't think most people are going to pay for that.
Well, it's not about,
No.
so let me clarify a better job description for this. This would be a person that would be based out of this courthouse, be helping set up events in this building and on this campus over at elections and other places. Our facilities department, if you look at our facilities department and their accrued time, there's 5 new positions that are asked for in the facilities department because the burden and the necessity on the facilities department. I think it might be more palatable if this was, we're asking for 5 positions, 6 positions in facilities instead of 5, instead of being an aid to the court.
Maybe that.
And I understand your sensitivity to that. Like if we're asking or building our own, it is what it is as far as the workload and the demand. And so this position will be nimble in the fact that it would assist this building, other buildings here, and the new camp that we purchased and that meeting room there. I anticipate that room actually being more in demand than even just based on the emails that I'm receiving and the inquiries that we're getting. I anticipate it being more. So to your point about the cost per meeting, we also anticipate that this position would help with the janitorial and custodial things here at this building. And so as we figure out the workload and the setup and breakdown of these different events, they will be supplemented by a reduction and an offset in the expenses to the janitorial contract. And so when the Commissioners Court recently contracted this spring for the revisions to the contract on our custodial, we made sure there were provisions in there to escalate that contract if necessary, or provisions to decrease it. So we have a mechanism in the existing contract to be able to adjust that. So I think once we get this new person onboarded, let them get established and see what the workload is on the other, we'll be able to do an offset for a business model for the
I've got a
thing.
question, Judge. Just last week, my day porter quit. And we had to call facilities to say, we gotta have somebody, the bathroom trash can's overflowing. Would we be able to use this person to come down to precinct 3?
Yes, I believe that the spirit in which this position would be used would be that it could be a floater as necessary.
Okay, so
Much as Harold was for.
Just here, it would be wherever,
okay, wherever the need is.
that's where I interpret it.
Especially if it's an event that you're having at precinct 3 in your facility, then I think that they
Well,
would.
no, my building just needed to, I didn't have a
Oh.
janitor. She quit that night and they didn't clean up. So when we came in that morning, all the bathrooms and everything was still dirty, so
Oh, yeah.
April had to call facilities and said, we gotta have somebody down here, and they had to find somebody to come down here and clean that building. So I wanna know if we're gonna have this new position, can they go other places than here?
I think if there's a.
I think those, I think there's, it sounds like that there's definitively reasons to be considering this. I think that I personally, I'm not comfortable that it's exactly been, that's best. I think you even mentioned, would we be better off with facilities? Not because of any positional things, but because if that's where things are happening. Otherwise, would it be better if this was a part-time? I don't know. I think for me, I would be also under I'd rather us see how things are going. Briarwood, I love the Briarwood project. We've talked about this, that I think that's going to be a great thing, but I also want to make sure we get the right person, the right things in place, and we can come in anytime and add this if we need to. And so I guess I would be kind of that same thing. I'd like to spend a little more time making sure this is in the right place, the right person, the right position. But
May I add a comment about the facilities? I know we're kind of talking about facilities a little bit, but, you know, I mean, the majority of facility staff, and I mean probably 80% right now, are already sitting at 240 hours comp time. So when we call them out on Saturday to open a building or to make it ready, it's overtime for that facility staff that's coming out on Saturday to get a building ready.
But all the more reason that maybe this ought to be a facilities position. I mean, and we should be,
Judge, could I move that we move that position to the facilities as opposed to having it here under aid to the court? Because that makes it part of that facilities team.
I think it's more working in concert when the aid to the court is working with these people and setting up the event and dealing with them. I think that would be a separate layer, and I think it would be more appropriate. That's why we spend a lot of time thinking this through as far as the functionality and the best practice. I appreciate your support of the overall position, but I think that having it set up with the aid to the court, who's in constant communication right here with the individual, having the individual in the building, working closely with the aid to the court the proximity is important. I don't know why we would go through those
position is
mechanisms.
assigned to the.
What I'm saying, if you do it for facility, can it be assigned with aid to the court, so.
I mean, I think anything is possible, but I don't know why we would go
I'm
through that
asking.
extra. I don't know why we would go through those extra
Yeah, steps. I
steps.
understand.
Yeah, I think
But
one
I'm
of the
just
extra
asking.
steps. Are there any other comments? All right, where are we at?
We have a motion to approve, I think,
To approve.
as recommended.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. Any other comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. All right. What do we have left here? Okay, so those are the new hires.
Okay,
I don't even know.
Let's go back to,
hold on a minute, Judge.
Yes, ma'am.
S-39, we hit on that some, the facility management people. Can you tell me how many general landscapers that we have already? You're asking for one, can we put one in the budget, so. Is that your question?
Yes, ma'am. We currently have a landscape supervisor and then one general landscaper.
For
This
all
would add a additional general landscaper that is in the recommended budget. So
For
that-
all the buildings?
Yes. So one supervisor, two generals would be what this recommended budget would provide.
Okay, what about that electronic technician? Tell me what they're gonna do.
So the electronic technician is a little bit different than that of an electrician or a certified electrician. That is more of a low voltage type technician assistant. So to provide with door hardware, electronic door connections, any type of low voltage electronic equipment, fire alarm systems, things like that, that would be working specifically related to those type of low voltage, which is different than a certified electrician.
And we approved, I mean, you put in the budget, is it 1, 2, 3 maintenance repair specialists?
3 maintenance repair specialists, yes, ma'am.
How many do we have now?
I believe
It's actually
my
four.
colleague here will help me.
They didn't give us one.
I counted earlier.
And then I want you to tell me what they do. 7 of them. 4. Yeah, but, right here, baby. No, I'm talking. They got, no, they didn't recommend any of these.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I'm talking about the ones that they recommended, yeah.
Commissioner, 9 currently employed at maintenance repair specialist 1.
And they asked for 11 total, and we did 1, 2, 3. Is that 1, 2, 3? Yeah.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay. Anybody else have, or just me have questions about those?
Well, we finished on the new positions, right?
Some outstanding questions.
Okay.
Those are on the new positions.
Yeah.
We
Oh, voted on those,
approved,
didn't
we approved them.
But I'm sorry, I have to go back and question.
Okay, I was
Sorry,
tracking with you. I'm tracking with you.
sorry. I didn't pull those, did I?
It's all good.
And Commissioner, I didn't ask, I don't think I answered your other question. What do they do? And one of the intent of these additional 3, I think with discussion with Dale, was specifically related to reducing some of the real small projects that are currently outsourced, so that we can have additional staff, so we can insource some of these things like painting and some small drywall repair, some other remodel stuff, light remodel stuff that we do, so we can maintain that in-house and not have to go outside at this time of construction escalation at 1% per month is what we're at.
So did we contract for painting?
Yes, ma'am.
We just did for the coal building. Yeah.
Yeah, so Jody's right. So part of this was a broader discussion about, yeah, it's okay. I was wondering, part of it was a broader discussion about relying less on outsourcing and paying the profit margin on that, especially as we're trying to get vendors to bid on things. And so, and contractors, I'm sure you're familiar. So part of it is bringing some of those internally. And so this would be staffing up appropriately to get us to that point. Okay? So it's part of that was part of the background on that. All right. All right, we've done the new hires, right, Ashley and Bianca? Okay. So let's go back to, we did the new positions. And so let's go back. Was there any, let's go back to the salary revisions. Was there any other?
Judge, I still stand for my motions for the 2 reclasses that I did earlier.
Can't hear you, Ryan.
I'm sorry. I'm still not in agreement of the 001-CC or 002-CC.
What page, please? I'm sorry, I'm having.
Mine's not on the page, mine's on this.
It's 38.
It's the 2 AD reports.
It's S19, is it not? Or S4, you can go, yeah, there's quite a few different places.
Diane, go to page 43. It's
On your
S43.
S43, sorry.
Okay.
That's the part about.
S43.
Okay.
That's the one I had up a while ago.
So that's the,
Okay, you know,
And which one, Ryan, are you talking about?
Both, it's the aides,
2 at the top.
both of our
Page
aides.
2 here. 2 at the top. Okay.
so you're,
Did we vote on one of them?
no.
No, we didn't vote on
We,
either, remember?
we discussed it, we did not vote on it.
Oh, okay, because we wanted to make
You're
sure.
expressing your,
Yeah.
your,
My motion is to
displeasure.
leave them as they are.
so you have a motion to keep the 001CC and 002CC.
Yes, sir.
In their existing position. There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second again for discussion. But we, just to make sure we're clear, the position, the new position will now report here, right?
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. So
Yeah, thank you for your clarification.
So, I'm sorry, Judge.
Yes,
Okay, so generally, when you add another individual to an area, that individual is taking offloaded work from someone or somebody's. So, normally, it's not a raise and an added person. Not with my experience, obviously, in the private sector. It's usually one or the other. Either you give a raise because obviously there's more work involved instead of hiring another person, or you hire someone because makes more financial sense to hire another person than it is to give two people raises, and you get a lot more work out of that one. You get to take some of those items off of the one or two under these circumstances to that other individual. So anyway, that's my rationale behind my scenario, so.
okay, I get it. I respect your opinion. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Just to clarify,
We don't have a second, he had a motion to clarify.
this motion is to do it with the, removing those two, right?
Yeah, that's just that's
We've
my
already
motion.
voted on the new one.
Yeah. But we're talking about the revisions now.
This is
so I
a
just-
salary, the reclasses, this is for the reclasses. So to clarify, your motion is to approve it as recommended, excluding these two positions. Is that correct, Commissioner
Oh,
Williams?
yes, sir.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I'm not in support of that. I do believe that
Wait a minute.
go ahead.
His motion was to not do these two. Okay, okay.
So the list minus these two is what I understand.
And just to clarify,
And not the other one.
Yeah,
Yes,
the 005 CJ has
I
already
think
been
we're,
handled.
okay, because we're gonna have to bring these two back. So that's the reason I said he's not, his motion should be to not do these two. And then we have a motion to include to do these two.
Correct.
Got to pull these two out.
Right.
He's making a motion to adopt the list as presented minus these two.
Well,
And
we
we'll
got
take
three
a
in
vote.
there. We can't just do
Yeah,
those two.
The other one has
probably
been
need to amend
addressed.
your motion to
Okay.
include.
Say again? Oh,
Okay,
yeah, I
so-
can amend my motion so I can be a little clearer. Sorry, Judge. I want to approve as been requested or
Recommended.
recommended, thank you, Judge, other than 001-CC, 002-CC, because the 005-CJ has already been
Right.
Correct.
handled. So
Okay.
other than that, the rest would be as recommended.
Correct. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay.
Okay.
The motion carries.
Okay,
So-
now we come back to these individuals.
We can't come back now because you opposed.
Did you have
Did you
confusion
vote
on the
aye or nay?
motion?
Yeah, if you have confusion, please,
I thought
Judge.
you said we could come back if we take those out. We could come back to them individually, is that not correct?
Okay, so y'all just
But I
approve
asked
the
to do-
list as presented minus those two. Now, you could make a motion, Diane, to include them back in, and we could include them back in.
Right.
Well, I do think we need to vote on those, so.
Okay, we just
Okay.
voted so the list has been approved minus those two.
Do I
If
have
you
to
wanted
vote
to
no
make,
to say
I
yes?
think you could
Yes.
add them back
Yeah,
in.
you
I
got to
get
vote no to say
Want me
yes.
to- want me to-
Were you confused on the motion? Okay,
Yes,
that's,
sir.
Want me to
that
pull
is,
my motion and redo it, Judge? Which one's easiest?
why don't we revote? I think there was
That's-
some confusion. Go
okay.
right ahead, go
Yeah,
ahead, let's
no.
do it again.
Yeah, Judge, unfortunately, obviously, I think there was confusion on that. So I want to make sure that everybody's correct and feels fine. So I would ask that you would retake that vote, sir.
All right, so to clarify the motion, it is to approve the list as presented minus the two reclasses and the aid to the court. Okay, so let's go ahead, we'll have a motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay.
Nay.
All right, the chair will move to approve the list as presented minus the 005 CJ. That's my motion. We have a second. Second by Commissioner Mitchell. Any discussion? Y'all's objections are duly noted. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Now we're ready.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. We made it through that.
I think it's easier doing it.
You
All right.
couldn't hear, I don't think.
I can't see, I can't hear, I'll tell you, but I can, okay.
Oh, well, doesn't matter.
Okay, let's go back to,
Amazing how that happened.
Then we gotta vote on.
does anyone need to take a break, or are we good to proceed?
No, we're good.
You're good to go? All right.
We have to vote on these other things? Yeah, we have to vote on that.
Now let's go back to our, you may want to go to your green sheets at the beginning. You have our district clerks there, or your agenda, whichever one you want to proceed with. So let's go to our district clerk, which was item 1 on our appeals. Is there any questions remaining, or do we have a motion for approval? Or we could also take no action. It could just be no action. But if there is a desire to make a motion, we can proceed. This is for the 2 district clerk positions, and the chair move for approval. Second by Commissioner Edmondson. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay? That is for number 1. Let's go to our next page, which is the county criminal courts and probate courts. This is the deletion of the $1,500 due to the juvenile board allowance and increase into the offset for compliance purposes. Do we have a motion for approval? Motion by Commissioner Edmondson, second by Commissioner Mitchell. Any discussion? That's correct. It is a wash. Any comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, let's go to this is the county clerk's reclassification for their position. And I will say that where's my list here? I would like to move approval of the county clerk and the county treasurer's request, along with and I would add to that the district clerk and the tax assessor collector. I would move all 4 of those to an 18. That would be the chair's motion.
Okay.
Seconded by Commissioner Mitchell. Any discussion?
Could you just say those again, Judge?
Yes, ma'am. For the record, it is the chief deputy of the county clerk, the assistant county treasurer, the chief deputy of the district clerk, and the chief deputy of the tax assessor collector. That's the chair's motion. And we have a second by Commissioner Bobby got it. Okay, Commissioner Mitchell. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I want to thank the county treasurer and the county clerk both for your advocacy and bringing it to the court's awareness. Let's go to, let me go, multiple lists here. Okay, so we did that, the county clerk. So that was.
Now we're at magistrate.
All right, let's go to the next page, y'all. This is the magistrate court. I'm going to actually skip the clerks. I'm going to come back to all the clerks in just a second. We'll have a combined conversation about that if you are open to that. Let's go to the fire code enforcement on the next page. This is moving the fire code enforcement to the law enforcement plans. So do we have any discussion, or do we have a motion? Do we have a motion? We have a motion by Commissioner Edmondson, second by Commissioner Mitchell. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Next, let's go down to, that's for all of those, okay. Let's go to the next page, y'all, under the Fire Code Enforcement Fund 27. This is the allocate the new vehicle
Did we
and equipment.
already vote on this one?
No,
We haven't? Okay.
no,
I'm sorry, you're right, we didn't.
we didn't get to that one yet. All right, so this is moving the vehicle. Do we have a motion for approval? Commissioner Williams, are you
So
in
they
favor?
got it? Yep, I'm good with it.
You're the vehicle, okay. So we have a motion by Commissioner Mitchell, second by, was it Edmondson? Okay, I couldn't, my head
No,
was turning.
I'm good with it.
Okay.
No, you did. Oh, then she did.
Oh.
Diane's
Diane
moving,
did.
Diane's moving.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Edmondson. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Williams. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next is the juvenile grant, a basic court intake. The chair move for approval.
Well, I'll second, but then a question.
Second by Commissioner Falconer. Proceed.
So did I understand, though, that we still do this, I think, but that the funding is coming from a grant, so there's really no cost to the budget?
It is, we do have funding for it from the state's recent allocation to the county.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Correct. So we have a motion and a second. Any other question? That's a good question. All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Next, let's proceed to appropriations. This was the 381 fund. The chair moved for approval.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Falconer. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And that is for, well, that motion covers all three of those. Okay, now let's go back and talk about the clerks. And the magistrate and the justice of the peace. And so there's a couple things we could do here. We do have money in contingency to cover any future decisions that the Commissioners Court may make, okay? So we could have a spirit of agreement today, and we could also charge HR to work with the office holders as a work group and come back to Commissioners Court with revisions of job descriptions and a plan of action for them to have a plan of progression, okay? And so we could, with key identifiable, there may be some commonalities there, but there also be unique to the different offices for the different clerks across the county, so they could work on a different plan. So we could make that determination at a future date, realizing that they want to do some kind of adjustment, kind of as they progress through their credentialing, if they have credentialing or training. And so that's something that we could put that, we could task as part of our budget process, HR to work with them and to come up with a plan to be presented. And then we just have Alec, ma'am?
Include the JP?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, those.
Correct.
At the district JP?
So it could be the magistrate, the JPs, and so we not take any specific action as it relates to them, but acknowledge a concept that we want to work towards.
I like
in a
that
timely
simply
manner.
because I think it is a little complicated and we don't want to mess something up.
And
which is-
there's parties that may be impacted that were
Right.
not in the room today,
Right.
which I
Right.
think that's
But
important.
we did approve the district court's request, right?
Yeah, that was,
Yes.
yeah, different. But on this one, I think that's a good idea, and
And kind of work it through.
I don't want to jump two classes and
What-
skip over one
Right.
step. That's my point.
and the idea is not that everyone gets moved, immediately gets moved,
Right.
right?
I think there would be some benchmarks that we
Right.
would need to clearly identify that have common agreement amongst the officials, and then we work towards that.
I like that idea.
Okay, are y'all, Jody has a comment?
Just a clarification in visiting with Gustavo, that this will take some time, and understanding that we would not be able to probably make this happen October 1st.
But we have the main thing is that we do have money allocated, and we have contingency for this or other purposes, and so, you know, we have, this could be a motivator for the officials to work in a timely manner to get that done, and if it's October 1st, it's October 1st, but subsequent to that, that's okay too.
Yeah, so, because we could have promotions after October 1st.
Sure,
right?
absolutely.
And so, Judge, are we talking about the JP3 one at the same time, or is that, because I guess what I was going to say is that one we could do today, right? I mean, because they've asked for, or are you suggesting we hold on all of it?
Well, I would rather try to have a comprehensive.
Okay, got it.
Comprehensive
Perfect.
approach. There's no one-offs.
Gotcha.
So, do we have where's Alejandro? Do we have all the actions necessary for today?
That would be all the actions on the changes sheet, with the only remaining actions on the agenda itself.
On the agenda, okay. Let me find that.
And then with
Turn
those,
in your hymnal.
we'll get a revised number of what everything,
So he will net out any increases on the expenditure side out of the contingency or other things.
Got it.
So we roll that in. Okay. Well, I want to thank the court for working through that process, and thank you for our guests with us
She got your
today.
agenda.
No, this is mine.
Oh, that's yours.
I was just saying,
Okay, so let's go back to the agenda. Let me find it. Where is it at? All right. We just completed 7B. All right, let's go to 7D, which is approval of proposing a property tax rate for tax year 2023 in the amount of 0.189485 per $100 valuation for Denton County and any appropriate action. Do we have a motion for the tax rate? Motion by Commissioner Edmondson. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Mitchell. Any discussion?
Yeah, I do have
Proceed.
some discussion. So,
Yes.
First, do we have to do this today, this one?
Yes.
Okay,
The
we
tax
do.
rate.
We have to set the tax rate today.
Let's set the tax rate.
So we can
Okay.
set the public hearing, yes.
So it'd be nice to know some of those numbers in case we wanted to go even a little lower, maybe? I don't know. I mean, but I just don't know what those numbers are
No,
exactly.
we don't want to go lower.
You don't want to go any lower?
I'd love to go lower. And my
I'm not talking about a penny.
Right.
But.
All right.
Even if it's a little lower to below the no new revenue rate. But I
All
don't
right.
know, I don't know what those numbers are. I don't know if Alejandro,
I'm confused.
I think we were supposed to set the tax rate today.
Yeah, we got to
no, that's what I'm asking, but if we, so, right now, the no new revenue rate is the 18.9 or whatever it is, right? Like if we just, what is it, 18.9? I don't have it sitting here.
189.
Something, 89, what is it, Alejandro?
189,485.
Okay.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So like, what if it were 18.9 even?
If you want to lower the tax rate, we could calculate what the difference would be in terms of dollars, and then we'd have to reduce the budget by that amount to reduce the tax rate. So we can do a calculation to determine what how much we need to reduce the budget by to give you the tax rate that you're looking for.
Well, you just set the budget and added to it, so
Yeah, I
you
just,
can't do, you won't be able to pay for it.
well,
No, we
have
have
some
millions of
contingent-
dollars in contingency,
have some
so we'll take it out of the
contingency.
contingency. We'll take it out of the contingency.
so,
like that.
just to help me a little gauge, how much is a penny worth?
Approximately $14 million based on the current taxable value.
So a penny's 14 million. All right,
We gave up 28 million,
yeah, so it
28 million right now that we gave back.
Yeah.
2%.
Yeah,
2
yeah.
pennies.
I'm fine with where it is. I was looking at something that we say, hey, we're below the new revenue rate, but, I'm certainly happy that we're there.
We are at the lowest tax rate since 1986.
Well, and that's why I also want to know what 85 was.
Well, it can,
Well, no, it
has to be
has to be lower or else we should say we could go back more than 86, right?
yeah, it can definitely be something that we can get with you on for future years and make sure that we provide you that information so that in future years you're able to do those calculations that you're looking for.
Yeah, I certainly would like to have that.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
I'm used to seeing that.
Yeah,
so.
we get you the longer. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, let's go to item 7C, which is approval of setting Tuesday, September the 12th, 2023 at 10 a.m. as the date the Commissioners Court will hold a public hearing for discussion of the fiscal year 2024 proposed budget located in the Denton County Administrative Courthouse at 1 Courthouse Drive, Commissioners Courtroom, Denton, Texas 76208. Chair move for approval. Second by Commissioner Mitchell. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Do we have this whole agenda done? I think we do. We got it done. Okay, good. Thank you. Members, I want to thank you all for your involvement and your thoughtful questions and research on all the topics we discussed today. I want to thank all of our office holders and department heads who made appeals today, and thank you for making the budget a better process. And hearing no other action before the court, we are adjourned.